We're back at the Hybrid Cloud Partners podcast. I'm Fede Pacheco alongside my teammate and colleague Adam Burke. How you doing, Adam?
Hey, I'm doing well. Actually, I'm just back from a trip also, and it was interesting because talked with a number of partners, many that have seen some of the comments and conversations from this podcast, and mentioned how they've been using some of the insights, and then also just kind of seeing the inspiration from other partners there as well in terms of their transformation and what they're learning. Great to see kind of the evolving work and impact of hybrid cloud providers around the world here in terms of our joint customers.
That for sure is very exciting. And the reason why I'm double excited about this episode today is because we have a partner that reached out because they checked out our podcast and they just reached out to me in LinkedIn and they were like, hey, can we do something together? I feel like there's an opportunity here. And that partner is Velocio. We have Carolyn Norton, who is the practice director of cloud services. Carolyn, welcome to the podcast. We'll talk more about how that interaction came to be and what is happening behind the scenes on top of this episode that we're recording. But first, we want to know about you and Velocio a little bit more.
Oh, well, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad that I was able to participate in conversating on all things specific to me, cloud. So Velocio is a cloud service provider, and we've been around for about 30 plus years now working with our client base. We typically live in the small, mid-size range, and we have a little bit upper enterprise as well. And we focus on the entire Microsoft stack. We have a background of business apps and traditional legacy software like Dynamics, on-prem, GPS, LNAV. But as things started to evolve, we evolved with it, and we jumped in on the cloud side, the modernization of it all. And that's what we've been focused on for the last decade plus, in making sure that organizations are thinking beyond just, that narrow space of what's important to them and thinking more broadly, because we can do a lot more with Microsoft's broad scope, and we could do a lot inside of Velocio as well. I've been with Velocio for quite a bit of time. I'm a technologist at heart, from the old days of trying to put computers together to where we're at now with cloud and technology. And it's exciting for me as a practice director to get to talk to clients and talk about, what do you got going on right now? What is keeping you up at night? What are you hearing that's important to you? And then how can we best strategize and see what's available inside of the technology space? Not necessarily always answering with technology, but thinking about, how can processes be improved? If there's technology that can be provided around it, and or what concepts and theories you should be thinking about as an organization as you try to evolve what you're trying to do with your client base. So it's exciting to me because I get to come in every day and have a different conversation most times, but also recognize that there's a lot of similarities with clients.
That's excellent. One of the questions we like to start off the show is really to learn how our guests are personally using AI in your day-to-day work or life. So kind of an open-ended question, but curious how you're finding efficiencies and new uses of AI. How has it kind of changed your work life?
Well, I will tell you that I'm probably like many others who heard the buzzword AI and started to dabble in understanding what it is. I think I want to assume that a lot of folks did the same thing I did, which is assume it's kind of like a fancy search engine slash, grammar, spelling, slash, and really look at it from a very surface level opportunity. But once I started to recognize, it can do that, and that's wonderful and helpful. But then what came across my mind is, gee, I wonder if it can do this. You start hearing what other people are thinking about doing, and then you start formulating different prompts. Help me write a sales pitch. What do you think about this service offering? And is there anything that can support why I should do this? And specific to my day-to-day life, how do I create better content for my client base? How can I make it easy for them to consume and consider it from their perspective, not my perspective, and things like that. Where now I started thinking beyond, all right, simple question answer, and more so help me try to get to where I think I'm trying to get to using AI. So that's been a game changer for me because um, interacting with clients, I'm often, told I don't know what I don't know, and they're looking for us to provide that guidance. And for me, I'm always trying to figure out how can I either illuminate something that they can have that they don't realize is a concern or an issue for them, that we could potentially talk about and see what we can do. Or how do I take a business problem that they give me and try to come up with an answer and or, already know the answer by saying XYZ and communicate that effectively and strategize better. So what I like about AI now is I think of it as my, my sounding board, my counterpart, my Carolyn 2.0, 3.0, 3, this is a version of me that I get to talk to, not just in my mind, but using the vast intelligence and really going back and forth and trying to get to an outcome that I'm trying to get to. So polish what I'm trying to create, have strategic ideas, maybe problem solve something that I can't get through, that there might be an answer out there. It's just so much that's possible with AI. And then a little game I like to play with myself now is for things that I'm trying to gain efficiencies on, I try to see if AI can do something for me under 30 minutes. So if it's going to take me an hour to put together a deck or create content or whatever, and if it's going to take more than 30 minutes, how can I prompt or use AI, an agent or something to get to the outcome faster?
Yeah, I love what you said there for a couple reasons because it kind of resonates with I think some things I have seen in a lot of interactions this week with partners in different geographies. Where one, the partners that I feel like tell our story best become customer zero, where they're essentially adopting it internally so they can share it with others. I feel like that is just essential. Two, I love how you kind of have a goal in terms of time savings and be able to put a framework around it, like the 30-minute framework, if you will, right? If this is going to take me more than 30, how can AI do it faster? I think that's a great goal in terms of it. How can we be better versions of ourselves essentially with AI, right? Where AI is just making us that much more efficient and productive. So that is awesome feedback and perspective. Thanks for sharing that.
I'm measured by KPIs all day long.
We all are. We all
Yeah.
are, right? Yeah.
So it stands to, reason that,
Yeah.
let me add a KPI to this so I can actually
Yeah.
measure. Because
Mhm.
that's another thing that comes up a lot too is, is AI that valuable? Is the hype real? Et cetera, et cetera. So just KPIing it for myself kind of,
Proves the
answers that
value.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And,
Yeah.
and I think, Adam, you and I can really relate with a lot of things you shared, Carolyn, on how you use it, because that's exactly not only how we use it for our everyday work, but even for like setting up this podcast and everything that we do, all the things that we use agents for example, Q&A. I was just talking to another partner that we'll feature later down the road, and we were just discussing what we wanted to talk about. And I usually then go back to an agent that helps me set up, okay, these are the questions we usually like to ask, like the one we just asked you, but also like how do we customize it to this partner and the story we want to tell. And we had like 5 minutes left, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to share my screen and show you the agent that I use for this. And it just became like a little better. And I thought maybe we should start doing that from this point onwards. So I think this really connects well with what I wanted to talk about next, because and I want to give a shout out to Erin Longo, who helped us set up this. She reached out to me exactly about having this conversation and told me how Veloci is really becoming a leader in the perspectives and how workers all around the world are adopting AI. And I said, well, you know what? We just released a study, the Work Trend Index at Microsoft, that exactly talks about that. It's been multiple years that we've released it, and I've seen the updates. So I figured before we jump into cloud migration and cybersecurity and all the other topics that we could talk about with you, let's actually take a pause and share our perspectives on what we see is happening in the market. Because as you very well said, Carolyn, Some people think it's okay, it's a lot of hype. Some people say, even though there's a lot of hype, this is underhyped. So it's really hard to make your mind in this complexity. But what our work trend index says is that 4 out of 5 leaders say that this is the year of make or break year for scaling AI, meaning like, are you either going to adopt it in your organization or you're just going to stay behind? So let's have this conversation. What I did is I used our researcher feature to compare our study with other studies out there and kind of bring 5 highlights of what are the, like the really distinct things that this study brings that it hasn't been brought to the table before. But first, I want to ask you your perspectives from Velocio's point of view. What are the things that you see from your conversations and studies that are really standing out right now in 2025?
It's very much what I mentioned earlier. It's a AI. How can AI complement what I'm doing? From a business perspective, like if I look at it from Velocio perspective, how is AI complementing everything that Velocio is doing so that we're interacting, engaging, and leveraging AI to amplify and again be that 2.0, 3.0 version of the organization, leveraging all that information and drawing out the best results. And then from an individual the perspective, the same. So what I noticed in our interactions with clients as it relates to AI, a lot of it tends to be agent related now. I think I don't think we're that far down in yet, but I think we've moved past this is another yada yada, like I mentioned earlier, and people are starting to realize, agents and actually giving it data to analyze and et cetera. So we're noticing that, a lot of sales teams are trying to use agents, for example, just like you mentioned earlier in preparing for a podcast. Sales forces are trying to use data to understand how do they understand their client better? How can they create better go-to-markets? How can they have better sales playbooks? And using telemetry, but not only using that telemetry, but also creating a flow after that. So I don't know, if they're having a conversation with an organization or prepping for something, not only is it taking that intel, but it's also feeding them back. And I don't want to say real time, but pretty close to real time. Here's some things that you can say or how to navigate that conversation, or here's something that got picked up that you may want to key in on. That really that to me, AI is making you better. Like the essence of what organizations are trying to do is how do they make the people that they have in the organization perform, kind of like that limitless pill that you can have all the answers at your fingertips and be able to do the right things. So sales, I've noticed a lot of that. In finance, I've seen finance organizations trying to take that content and how to take financials that are spit out, analyze it, and then actually pass it through a workflow that's going to disseminate information that's relatively easy to consume, highlight some key points, and maybe have some additional actions built into it. Like that's taking it a step further than just, here's data, tell me what you think of it. It's actually taking the results of that data and actually actioning behind it, which is pretty cool to see. I know I've seen HR organizations, and I'm a fan of this. Like, how do you establish better employee engagement, right? Is there sentiment and tone that you can use inside of AI, as you see someone come in for the day, month, year, that can help navigate how do they succeed in their role? How do they, are there tools that can be presented to them? Is there some automated feature that can be presented to the employee that they don't necessarily have to remember? They don't have to be told, don't forget, next month we're going to be talking about X topics and here's where you find it. No, here is a flow that automatically assumes, because of who you are and the intel you have and the flows we have built in, I'm going to feed you that content so it's easy to consume so that you can take action with it. So, I mean, there's a plethora, but I'm noticing organizations augmenting their people with AI alongside it. And then, of course, myself as a leader, I'm looking at it more so of how can I support what I'm trying to do? Like I said earlier, create better go-to-markets, improve my service offerings? How can I introduce automation into the things that we're doing? So how do I make better decisions based on, AI content? So I feel like those are the right now, those are the two main things that are exciting about AI that organizations are starting to light up on. And for us, I think everyone kind of gets AI is important. I feel like there's a fear of AI, not sure what it is and what it can do, and if it's the right thing for an organization. And that's one roadblock. The other roadblock is envisioning, right? And I love your point earlier. Just share screen and show it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, you said it, but now I saw it, and now I think I have an idea, and then we can run with that. And
Yeah.
that's
Makes it real, right?
yeah, it makes it absolutely real.
Yeah.
And as more organizations start to see the reality of it in 2025 and beyond, I think they're less apprehensive, and more in this excitement mode, like I am and like Velocio is, to jump into the AI.
Totally. Yeah. How does that shape the pivot, would you say, around, and maybe just beyond even AI too? Because I think there are a lot of benefits when customers are moving from traditional infrastructure to cloud solutions. What are some key outcomes you would say, or you would share with potential customers of Velocio, and benefits that they have seen as you kind of make this shift?
And to moving into the cloud in
Yeah.
general? All right. So for that, I have my standard three always.
Okay.
So, and I don't feel like they've really changed, believe it or not. There are, the great thing about the cloud is that it's so expansive. It's unlikely you've tapped into all of it. And so I like to always stick to my three lanes: scalability and flexibility. Whatever you have today probably can benefit from some agility, right? Being able to pivot, gosh, even more so now than in the past, when there's changes in the way we do business, trends, insights, impact, influence, all of that. Just knowing that you as an organization, when you can have your content in the cloud, and be able to scale and flex and adjust, and I wouldn't say at lightning speed, because that also is a fear factor for a lot of organizations, but just knowing that you can make those adjustments and you're not limited to constraints of a traditional setup. It's hard to quantify, but it's there and actionable for an organization. So that's one. Two is security. I've never met an organization that doesn't care about security and compliance. Whether you like it or not, it's going to be part of the narrative, and it just makes it so much easier, and more robust when you're inside of the cloud and you can leverage the tool sets that are already there. There's already investments being made there to continue to amplify, improve, and make sure that it's moving with whatever new regulations are in place, whatever requirements are in place, et cetera. And then you just have to decide whether or not that applies to you and make it happen. And then the last one is innovation, which now is more AI, right? So innovating, like, where's your space to try new things? I'm a big fan of, I like watching documentaries and just kind of hearing the story of how or people or organizations did A, B, and C, and all the struggles that they went through. And then this is why they're so successful, known, wonderful, et cetera. And it all stems from the ability to try something. How about trying it something different? How about doing something new? Maybe we tweak it a little bit, or maybe we just throw it out whatever we were doing out the door and try something from scratch. And innovation, I feel, as individuals and as organizations, that's what I feel like. That's why we do what we do. Is we want to be cool and come up with something new, or improve things. And where's that space to do it right now? And obviously with AI, even more so in the cloud, but the cloud offers that space. So I try to stick to the top three. I know there's a bunch of other things inside of the cloud that I can rattle off, and my tech girl side can absolutely do that. But I think those are the three. Those are always the three that, as an organization and as an individual, I think those are the pillars to focus on, and that's what you get out of the cloud. And then what I like to do is like when I say these things, like what are some things in those buckets, that would be important for you just to make it real, right? And again, I'm a KPI person. So what are you looking to get out of it, right? If you wanted more scalability, what does that really look like for you? Get it to one narrow sentence because that's an exercise in itself. And then what is the outcome of that? What is the measurable? Like what's the
Yeah.
goal? And it can be super simple. It doesn't have to be crazy. Like low hanging fruit is not a bad thing, right? Knock some quick wins out the door. And then again, you get the benefits of being inside of the cloud. So that's my playbook when it comes to cloud.
And we love that playbook because tech can get really, really complex, and
Yeah.
it's always evolving. When you think you have your practice set, a new thing comes along, market shifts, whatever. But Velocio has this practice or solution that you call the clear path consultation. I would guess that you as a practice director is really aligned with these three buckets that you already discussed. And I love that structured approach, but just would you want to elaborate a little bit more if you missed anything or if there's anything to add about this clear path consultation?
It's exactly what I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Like, let us give us an opportunity to sit down with you and assess, right? Let's get to know what your business looks like. We have certain industry expertise, so if that makes sense, we'll lend that in as part of the assessment. But ultimately, let us understand your systems. What's your business? What's your needs? What are your pain points? What are things that are working well? Sometimes that question is my favorite one, actually. Which one's working well? Because I find that people like to tackle the things that are working well and make it better than it is to talk about, I hate this. This is annoying to me.
The good to great plan,
Yes,
right? Essentially.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That one, I hate this, and they kind of live on that negative. When you
Yeah.
go into the positive of, we're doing this great. They're very proud.
Yeah.
They share how they got there. And then that gives you a lot of insight that you don't necessarily get from the, what do you hate?
Yeah.
And then from there, you're at least whenever we're doing these assessments, we think about, all right, here's what their thinking process was. Here's what was important to them. Here's what got them excited. Because that's another thing about technology is it is amazing for a technologist and a partner. Sometimes as a business is not so appealing. So getting the excitement out of an organization is part of the assessment and making sure that we're talking through not only real goals, but how is this going to amplify them? So that's one. The other concern a lot with migrating into the cloud and understanding what the right approach could be for an organization is cost, right? So we get that a lot, and we like to make sure that as we talk about the consultation, we're estimating for what is the migration look like? What does the project structure look like? How do we make sure that we have milestones and toll gates that everyone feels comfortable with? And then, oh, by the way, as a partner, obviously Microsoft helps support some of these initiatives, and then allowing us to go out and look for any kind of Microsoft supportive items that can, make sure that whether they get it or not, which again, we'll try to fight to get everything that we can. The client's going to get all the successes that they're looking for. And then we give them a deliverable of recommendations. Here's how you look in terms of readiness. Here's what it looks like in terms of timing. Here are some goals that we're trying to achieve, soft goals and hard goals. We do some, depending on the scenario, we do a visualization or a demo. If it makes sense, depending on what we're trying to do. Just again, it's important in my experience and others in the org is to help the client visualize what we're talking about, right? Because I'm saying a bunch of words and we all know what it means, but for some clients, it's not so obvious.
So I think that kind of, in terms of understanding and kind of what it means with this transition, Velocio, like you mentioned earlier, has a 30-year history, which is definitely mature, right, in the cloud space. That's a long time. Just like Microsoft, we're 50, we're ancient, right, when it comes to tech. Like that's a really, really mature business. Yeah. Well seasoned. That sounds good. We'll go there. So, we have listeners that are maybe earlier in their journey. They've adopted things like M365 for cloud solutions. Maybe they haven't actually pivoted yet to Azure. Could you speak maybe how kind of the Azure practice has really improved Velocio's overall sales cycle or helped holistically?
Yeah, absolutely. I can see Azure again. Azure, believe it or not, I perceive people think of Azure as a scary word because there's so much in it.
I thought because some people pronounce it Azure, and then it's like all this. Is that what it makes it so scary?
Oh gosh, I haven't heard that in a long time. Azure, yes, you're right. But Azure, to me, the perception I get is that Azure is a scary word for a partner and for a client. Just because there's so much in there, the level of expertise that you need, and then how do you make sure that you're delivering it successfully? For us, what we did is and again, I'm very big on simplifying and not trying to boil the ocean. Pick one or two things and just lean into it and then expand from there. And so what we were able to do over the years is really start looking at, the tried and true infrastructure and database migrations. Everyone has hardware, everyone has content, and then how do we get proficient in helping organizations move, that tactical item in that server closet over there and move it into the cloud successfully and alleviate the concern of downtime and issues and complexities and so on. We didn't tap into, at that time, I wouldn't say there was a big catalog like there is today, but there was still enough in there that there was areas to explore. And we started going through that motion. And what that's helped us do is when we're interacting with our clients, again, when we're having these conversations with them, I don't want to always, no one's an expert, but we know so much about the cloud ecosystem as it relates to SaaS, modern work, and Azure. We're able to talk across the board on these different areas. And the goal of Azure, of the cloud, but also Azure, is they're all meant to work with each other. So we've had scenarios where clients are, maybe they're implemented in M365, but, now they want to use a more sophisticated solution inside of Azure alongside. Well, we don't want to say no, right? We want to make sure that we have some experience that we can help them dive into that. And again, going back to the envisioning process, once you get to know your client and you're having these conversations and you start hearing what they're thinking about, then you can say, I just want you to know. And I do this all the time when we have meetings with clients, whether it's QBR, whether it's planning, whether it's, hey, I just wanted to chit chat with you and see what's up. And I'll say, did you know about this? Look at this. This is so cool. And it's all it is showcasing Azure and what's in there. And that's helped us do is over time in my practice, it gives us more familiarity so that we've ventured beyond just virtual machines and everything that's done in there to, like DevOps and Azure SQL databases and Kubernetes and all this other stuff and all the technical stuff. But for our client base, we're able to talk. So when they're giving us a problem, I remember a conversation recently where a client was having a challenge with capturing data and getting a notified as close to real time as possible, and knowing that there's something inside a cloud that can help take care of that. And it had nothing to do with where the conversation started, allows us to impart how great Azure is. It allows us to still be engaged with our clients so that they don't have to go find someone else, right? They can stay with Velocio on that other thing that we started talking about. But they know that now we can help them with envisioning other things inside of the cloud, aka Azure. And then hopefully the goal and the expectation and what we've seen over time is that we can do more. We can do more. All right, there's more to that meets the eye. And how do we continue to amplify that? So just if I were another partner, just ease into it. Start getting familiar with, a baseline virtual machines. Everyone has them, like I said earlier. help migrate workloads into the environment. And then you start to look for efficiencies. Can it be serverless?
Yeah.
Are there things that can automate whatever it is that they're doing? Can we use web services? I mean, there's so much.
That's the real value, right? Once you get
Yeah,
them in. Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. If you baby step in,
Yeah.
get familiar so you're not feeling overwhelmed, which is how we did it, right? And then over time, you can grow that practice and it becomes really amazing. And then from my side, what I get to do is I get to work with the other practice areas. Again, because Azure's so wide at this point, if the Dynamics team is rolling out something for Dynamics and they need Azure, what I like to say is orbiting support, right? Their world is biz apps. That's what they're focused on. But there are things that orbit around it that would support whatever it is that project that they're doing. We get to come in and support that. We don't have to always be front facing. It could still be a biz apps project. It could be a data project. It could be, I don't know, a reporting and design project, but it's all Azure. So we get to start to get more exposure. And then as a partner, you start to grow. And then you start thinking, okay, there's more here. How do we continue to invest? How do we continue to expand? And it over time, it gets to, where we're at today
Yeah.
and hopefully more.
Yeah, that's great. So Carolyn, thanks for sharing that perspective. I think that's definitely helpful for our partners in terms of understanding kind of how they can start to take incremental steps to continue to build out their full cloud practice and really unlock more value for our joint customers. I know DCO has played a role in your journey and evolution as well, where there was, a time, I think back in 2021 it was, where, we had an opportunity to engage, and then I think now again in the future. So maybe you can kind of share some perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we're always looking to see what is out there from a Microsoft perspective to make us successful. And so when we were introduced into the DCO program, at that point, we had already, like I said earlier, we were baby stepping into all these areas inside of cloud. We had made some great progress, but we were really, now it's time to amplify and really make deep investments and a concerted effort to, double down, I guess, is my way of thinking of it. And so with the DCO program, we were able to reach out with Microsoft and understand that the program is meant to support partners that are already doing this. They're already growing their Azure base. They're already looking to expand, what offerings they can provide inside of Azure. And Microsoft will support, you if it's, tooling or guidance, funding,
Yeah.
so that you're successful. And then ultimately, you're growing your Azure space. And it was interesting when we made the decision to make the concerted effort and understanding that DCO was there, it actually also motivated us even more. We were already going to do it. But the fact that DCO was behind it as well, we're like, wait a minute, we're about to do this and they're going to help us and they're going to give us funding.
Yeah.
Now we really now we're committed all in because now there are stakes in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not like, yes, I wish I could. This is really again, a measurable that we can, measure against is hitting the DCO so that we can win. So it was great. We were able to leverage that. We were able to hit our mark and our objectives and grow our Azure as we planned on doing. And again, that funding, how we took it is we were able to get, again, more insight, more guidance with Microsoft, partnering with Microsoft. And then the funding also allowed us to, again, reinvest and see what else inside of Azure we can do more of. How do we, again, continue to amplify what we're doing inside of Azure and continue to grow? So it's grown since 2021, and that was in the height of the lovely pandemic. And again, I mentioned earlier, we have development teams, we have a data team, we have an AI team. We have all of these groups that are now in Azure. So now we're ready to do it again. And again, it's not like we're not doing this already. Every month, every quarter, every year, I'm always wondering, gee, how can I grow Azure more? So it's definitely something that I'm already doing as a practice director. But then with the added DCO, there becomes a little bit more accountability and
Yeah, yeah,
support and making sure that we hit our objectives.
of course. Yeah, we got your back, and you have the confidence that any question that comes, there's another resource there that can
Exactly.
help you. And also, we've had conversations with other partners who yeah, bring it on, and they're like, this is how it impacts our finances on our customers' finances. So it's great to hear it from you. And we're just extremely grateful because I think as the finale of our season, we're gonna take a break now with the summer and everything before our next episode. We've covered a lot of the things that we wanted to wrap this first season with, which was how AI is impacting organizations like yours. How are you incorporating this across cloud, and how any organization that is focused on one thing can expand their scope and really bring and become that technology strategist for their customers. So before I ask you this last question, I want to go back to where we started, which was, the work trend index and everything that's happening. I just want to give you 5 quick snips of those
Okay.
distinct insights that I got from our researcher about what makes this study unique. And maybe you can just wrap us up and take us home by commenting on how you think that could impact Velocio's evolution in the future, right? So I think the first one I already brought up, 4 out of 5 leaders say that this is a make or break year. But I think the real insight here is that if you go back a couple of years ago, it was like employees secretly using some AI tool in the side while their leaders were like, I don't even know what AI is. And now the leader is like, employees, you gotta use this. So it's really like different, right? It's like going to the top. And at the same time, it's what brings the introduction of what we like to call frontier firms, which is firms that in their DNA they have AI at its core, and these firms report a remarkable 55% higher capacity, which is the ability to do more. It's not only Microsoft's vision and mission, but also what everybody wants. They want to achieve better things. You spoke about augmenting a lot, and I love it because a lot of people speak about AI as how do I get rid of mundane tasks, but you're talking about how I become Carolyn 3.0, I think you said, like that better version of myself, and how do I do the things that I like and make them become the things that I love. So number
Exactly.
3, and this is actually not so great news, is that people are receiving 275 notifications per day. And I did the math, and that's a ping every 3.5 minutes. And that's not on the work, that's on 16 hours of, imagine like that's the time you're awake if you sleep 8
Yep.
hours. And so after our meetings are jumping 16% year over year, everybody's just got more work. So if you're able to augment yourself, that is not only the best thing you could do for your organization, but also leads me to insight number 4. And I know I'm going really fast. We're going to publish this so people can read it, but that means that the expectation from these leaders in organizations is that their employees become what we like to call agent boss, which means they as an individual have a set of teammates that are agents and AI capabilities that help them achieve more. And they really expect 1 of 3 leaders expect that their teams regularly manage AI agents in the few next years, right? So it's an immediate ask. And to speak on the final insight is on top of all of this, 75% or 3 out of 4 companies now see that AI governance is critical. So for a company like Velocio, it just becomes a really critical part of their practice. You spoke about security earlier and how you don't know any organization you work with that doesn't care about it, but it's just like I spoke to a partner just a few days ago, and they were saying like it just makes everybody better. It's like driving, right? If you don't drive responsibly, you're also putting others at risk. So I'm just
Correct.
wrapping this up really fast, but I wanted just to give you these insights and also for our listeners, kind of like a celebration of our season. And I want you to take us home by comment on anything that really stood out to you and to how your organization can evolve here.
We're a technology firm. So and our CEO is actually also a fellow technologist. So
Yeah.
he and I talk about how we're one of those geeky people that are excited about how can this make business better, because that's really what we're trying to do is evangelize that. We have an AI steering committee organizationally where we're looking for like this employee experience item is a known thing. Like either this is a thing that they like so much, which is why I mentioned it earlier. How do
Yeah.
we amplify that thing for the employees so that they come in, excited to come into work? When I look at my team, one of the soft tangibles is measuring, are they happy to come in the next day? Are they excited about the technology that they're implementing, et cetera? So those soft measures, how do you improve employee experience, is something that we continue to look at AI to, again, make them a better version of themselves, get to content faster, better, more efficiently. It's funny you mentioned the ping. Gosh, I get pinged. I get pinged incessantly. And 2 weeks ago, I was talking with one of my engineers, and they created a bot, an agent that has a lot of the common questions that he gets asked. And I was like, well. Thank you for creating that. Why don't you add my stuff in there?
I love that.
Because I'd love to not have to get asked the same question 50 times and then have it, rationalize what, one would say and give that answer back. And he loved it. And he went off and do that. That's how our team is. They go off and they play around and they come up with things that they can do better. That was exciting to see. Our sales team talking to other organizations. I've heard them come up with ways. How do they get to know their business before they talk to them? Is there anything current? Is there anything that's being seen that they can have a dialogue with? There's so much inside of Velocio that, that steering committee is helping evangelize, and our CEO supports, which is amazing, right? Because it's not just us telling our clients, we're doing it internally ourselves. But in our individual practices, we're also going, gee, like, what bot can we create today? What agent can we create today? What can we do with AI better? Oh, did you see that they just lit up this new thing? How do I use that now?
Yeah.
So the excitement is, for me, what's going to continue to foster and grow this AI. The security side is important, and even try to make that a positive, right? To your point, like, let's add some guardrails here. I'll use your analogy. We don't drive on the road willy-nilly. When we drive on the road, everyone knows the rules, and there's guardrails on either side. There are toll gates and stoplights to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And it leads for an efficient drive and getting to our endpoint, right? Point A to B. And that's all the security is meant to be. It's not to be scary, even though it can be. It's not meant to drive fear. It's really meant to add structure and control and what may feel like a little chaotic when it comes to AI, and give some assurance to the organization. And again, the 3 pillars are important to me, like the innovation side, because now people can play. Like, I love when we do pods, like whenever we talk to clients about AI, we tell them to do pods, share with each other. Share, what did you come up with today? What came across your mind? And ask the question, how can AI do something better for me? And then maybe somebody else already thought of it and created something, or you guys get together and create something. It's that easy. Why stop it?
Yeah.
So it's super cool. And having that inside the org, I've seen it since we started really getting into it in the last 2 years or so. Just, getting to know, you're right, there was AI already out there, and then seeing how we could start to infuse it in our day-to-day. It's been pretty cool. And like I said, Carolyn has her own little KPI there.
Yeah. I'm going to adopt that myself.
Make sure that,
And I'm sure
so
our listeners will too. Well,
Yeah,
Carolyn,
it's
once
cool.
more, thank you so much for these insights, for these perspectives, and just for leading with example, both with your customers and you as customer zero. And for our listener, thank you so much for staying with us for 23 episodes that we released from July of 2024 to today. We hope you've enjoyed these 23 plus stories that we brought to life with partners like Velocio. And for next year, we only hope to continue to delight you with more cases and studies and stories that can really inspire you to achieve more in the world of hybrid cloud. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Stay tuned for more insights and stories from Microsoft's data center optimization team. Be sure to stay connected at dco.microsoft.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.